Alright, so I'm going to narrate here real quick. This is a demonstration I had done on the Bargue method. I just have gone through and sped up the video just a little bit to make things seamless and easy for us. So basically what I'm doing is I'm explaining to my my Art 3 class about the Bargue method by Charles Bargue. Depending on how and kind of your background in art, most likely you have evolved beyond stick figures and hopefully have kind of learned about blocking in. So I've got myself a model there, and I'm going to go ahead and just start drawing out this overall kind of style here. The Bargue style basically relies on using straight lines to kind of carve into the paper. So in essence, you can see here, I'm going to ignore all the details of her hair, let's say, and just kind of look at the overall outline, the silhouette, as kind of straight, simplified lines. So I'm going to start kind of etching those in, just kind of carving them into the paper here. Now you can go through and you can do the Bargue method in a couple different manner. You can actually go through and maybe start with an overall box, kind of figure out the overall height and width. You could think about a plumb line, kind of slicing it in half to kind of figure out where the mirroring point would be, you know, kind of making sure that things are symmetrical or asymmetrical. I like to rely really heavily on comparative measurement. So right there you saw I'm comparing the length of the part in her hair to actually where the hair connects into the scalp there, kind of like her where her bangs would be. So I'm going through here, and there's kind of my plumb line, kind of my crosshairs. If you're used to doing the Andrew Loomis method of kind of blocking in using form, so spheres and everything like that, you might be a little bit more used to starting off with circles and kind of slicing them in half and everything. This is definitely a little bit different. So I'm going to use comparative measurement, the width of her, the top of her hair there. You can see right here, using the width of the top of her hair, and that's about similar to, looks like the length right there, the kind of the height of her overall head. So I'm going to utilize that that height along with that width, and just kind of overall measure. So let's see, about there compared to there. So it's about where her chin is. And again, this is all about approximate. You are definitely never going to want to lock yourself down to one simple line, and that's exactly why the Bargue method uses these lines. Is you can always go back and very easily, almost like you have a protractor in your brain. You can always very easily go back through and kind of readjust these angles, you know, from a 35 degree to a 45 degree. That can make all the difference sometimes. And all this is really doing is going through and kind of, again, I started off with the bigger lines you can see to get the overall silhouette. I'm kind of etching my way, kind of cutting my way into the picture here. I'm not really worried about smoothing out my lines. Eventually I would be. If I had enough time, I would go through and really kind of finish up this overall drawing. But for right now, I'm definitely much more concerned about just getting something on the page, especially if you're drawing in timed positions. So if you're doing figure drawing and you only got 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you want to be able to go through and really kind of carve into this picture. This one right here was originally, I think, about 12 minutes long. Of course, I was demoing and lecturing while doing it, so probably ended up only being about 5 minutes. So I've sped it up. It's definitely much closer to about 6 minutes right now. And also being honest with yourself, right? As you're drawing, as you're figuring this stuff out, you're thinking to yourself about how much can you actually accomplish in that amount of time. The more and more you draw, the more you're going to know how quickly and how kind of prolifically you're going to be able to draw these people. So I'm right now just kind of figuring out where about her eyes are, and of course I know some basic anatomy as I kind of carve into her face here. I'm just kind of outlining some of the shadow. There's a lamp at the bottom of the table that is giving her kind of an up lighting. But you know, you want to know your basic anatomy as well. So I understand that the eyes are kind of sunken into the head. Here she's actually looking down at the computer screen, so her eyes are a little bit downward, but you want to really think about that overall anatomy while you're kind of blocking in using this Bargue method. Now this method, as you go along, eventually you're going to start kind of blocking in your shapes almost of where your shadows are. I'm not really too concerned about trying to smooth things over. I'm really just kind of putting down some shadows as if they're shapes. If you're used to doing digital art, very similar to how you would do in Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape using vectors, just kind of quick cutouts. You are going to mess up occasionally. You saw I just messed up right there, and that's okay. Again, it's not going to be perfect, and that's honestly that's okay. You just want to kind of get something on the page. That's all it's really there for. You can always go back and smooth these lines out later on, eventually kind of building up more and more detail. If you prefer using that Loomis method, again, those kind of spheres and circles and whatnot, use them later. Let this Bargue method be your foundation, and then as you're kind of cutting into it, you can eventually kind of smooth those lines out and think about anatomy of the figure and where everything should go. So again, you're going to see as this video slowly wraps up, you're going to see I'm not going to be able to finish in the time allotted, and that's fine by me. I didn't want to overwhelm my students with their demonstrations. But at the same time, in a relatively short amount of time, we're talking 5-ish minutes or so, I'm able to basically get that figure onto the page and at least get a rough estimate of where the lighting is coming from. So even if the model left or moved, I would have enough information placed where I could actually really start kind of figuring out how to reposition the model, or just finishing it on my own time with my mind, my imagination, and kind of how I remember things.